Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq, coming to you live from the Singapore Fintech Festival. Joining me for this segment, we have Domke. He's the CEO of GitHub to discuss productivity polarity in the age of AI. Thomas, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to TradeTalks.
Thank you so much for having me.
You got it. You spoke in your keynote about productivity polarity with AI adopting organizations, gaining competitive edge, AI embracing nations, leading the global economy. What are the risks and rewards in this new age of AI?
The rewards that we're seeing with the Copilot that we already have today is massive increases of productivity for software developers, for the professional workforce, by using AI to make their job easier. You know, by developers write code and they get suggestions of code, and that keeps them not only it doesn't give them only suggestions, it keeps them in the flow. It lets them, focus on their work. They don't have to switch back and forth between, their work environment and the browser, the internet, where they have to look things up, documentation. So that we see productivity, and on the other side, we see risks of not adopting AI fast enough to fall behind in this race, in this age of Copilot. We see risk of different regulations around the world. Imagine, the developers in Singapore only get 25% of productivity, but those on the West Coast get 50% productivity. Companies in Singapore would be at a disadvantage compared to those in the United States.
Well, let's talk about GitHub Copilot for a moment here. What's GitHub's vision for AI, and how do you see your organization leading the change for AI adoption? And really, what do you think code will really be written on? Do you think most of it will be written on AI or with AI in the future?
Yeah, we started working on Copilot over 3 years ago in the middle of 2020. We played with a GPT-3 model, the state of the art back then. And we realized very quickly that the model is really good in writing code and suggesting the next few lines of code. And through those 3 years, the number of lines of code written by Copilot has significantly increased. Earlier this year, we announced that on average, 46% of code is already written by AI in those files where the Copilot was enabled. So almost half of the code is written. Last week, Shopify announced that they have already written 1 million lines of code with Copilot. So we see these incredible productivity gains in writing code, and we think that by now bringing Copilot into different parts of the developer lifecycle, by making Copilot customizable, personalized for the organization, we can create even bigger productivity gains. And we know from developers that they're actually happy using Copilot, right? So it's this balance of the C-suite is happy about the productivity gains, the users, the developers in the company are actually happy about the flow that they're getting out of Copilot.
Looking ahead here, where do you see AI taking us, and how can we ensure that the benefits of AI extend beyond the tech sector?
I think we will all have Copilot as a second brain available to us, both in professional life and in personal life. In professional life, we already discussed the software development scenarios. There's many other such scenarios where we have to write strategy documents, summarize emails, deciding, do I need to read that email, or is that part of the noise of a big corporation and I can just read the summary and then move on because it's not relevant to me. There's all these processes, where Copilot can help a professional worker in their day-to-day, even more so when you join a new team, when you join a new organization. Every organization has institutional knowledge that is different, from corporation to corporation, and often those new employees, those new team members have to navigate the company first. They're wasting a lot of time ramping up. So I think, just having this second brain available to us in our professional life will make our companies more productive and us more satisfied in our jobs.
And that's such an interesting perspective. It's not about AI replacing what humans are doing. It's just making you more efficient and taking, to your point, do you have to read a whole press release, or can you use AI to really get, the main points out of it? I want to talk about GitHub Universe in San Francisco. You had some really big announcements out there. Tell us more about what the Universe, what took place there, and paint a picture of what's next for GitHub in this age of AI.
I think the tagline for me is that we are refounding GitHub on Copilot. GitHub originally 15 years ago was started on this version control technology called Git. That's where the Git in GitHub is coming from. And now 15 years later, we're realizing we're going through another wave in the software development industry where Copilot generative AI is changing of how we work. It's probably the biggest change since the invention of the internet browser in the early 90s, in the early days, in a way we are in 1994. And we have, many years to come where a lot of things will change. And at GitHub Universe, we talk talked about how we believe the future of software development will look like, from the original Copilot that helped you by auto-completing code to now bringing Copilot into other parts of the developer lifecycle, making them more productive by writing test cases. And you can just highlight code, you can ask it to explain that code to you. It actually does it in natural language, so it doesn't only work in English, it also works in German and in Brazilian Portuguese, in almost any natural language that has enough training data out there in the internet that OpenAI could train the model on it. And then you can say, write me test cases, and it writes 5, 6 test cases, and you can kind of like as a developer say, this is enough, or maybe I need 2 more or 3 more. And so it replaces a lot of the boilerplate work that comes with the creative work, and that most people dread to a certain degree. I want to build stuff, and I don't want to then also take care of all the other work that the corporation expects from me. So I think as we're heading into this new future, natural language will become the new universal programming language.
Interesting. All right, Thomas, we appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me from Singapore. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.